AG, on a separate issue, this morning I had the unpleasant experience of having my new digital ID card refused by a local bank. They refused to use it. They say they're not recognizing or accepting it. The actual act came into full force, I think, just about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Is this in violation, companies, businesses not accepting the digital ID card?
I have often publicly lamented to the judiciary, to the legal profession, to the law enforcement agencies, and to the population generally, that our government has one of the most aggressive and modernized legislative agenda. However, we will not benefit from these laws unless we are aware of them and unless we are prepared to comply with them. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse and as a universal principle. So unfortunately, the different agencies, the different sectors of the society have a duty to ensure that they familiarize themselves with the law governing or affecting their particular sphere of activities or their responsibilities. There is very little the government can do other than public awareness, and we are doing that continuously. And that is why laws are published in the official gazette as a legal requirement before they actually come into force. The purpose of that publication in the official gazette is not ceremonial, it is not sterile. It is to give the world notice of the content of the law. And that is followed by the principle that ignorance of the law is not a defense. The twinning of these two principles impose upon the population, or rather imposes on the population, a general duty to familiarize themselves with the law. Now, as you correctly reminded us, the Digital Identification Act came into force, I believe, 2 weeks ago, with an order under the hand of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mark Phillips, who is the subject minister under the law. By that order, the entirety of that act is now in force. The act says very clearly at section 6, a digital identification, rather, digital identity card shall be an official document sufficient and necessary to lawfully identify the person in doing any business with a public body or private sector entity, whether in person or online, within Guyana or in any country that has a reciprocal agreement with Guyana for the use of such a card. So here, the law says that the card is a sufficient and lawful form of identification to conduct any business, both in person and online, that requires the use of a form of identification. And it applies within territorial Guyana to both the public sector and to private entities. It has extraterritorial effect as well in relation to countries with which Guyana may at some stage execute some type of agreement with.
Right.
So the agency or entity that refused to use the card is violating the act. And I am sure that in the act itself, there are consequences of a penal nature that flow when there is non-compliance with any provisions of the Act, in particular, this provision of the Act, because this is the pivotal provision in the law that activates the legal character of the card as a form of national identification.
AG, finally, can you say we've received similar complaints about the digital ID card? And what happens if you continue to receive this level of pushback or non-acceptance?
Then, so to answer your first question, no, you are the first
Okay.
complainant. I have not received any other report of such non-compliance. If there continues to be non-compliance, then the police force will have to be informed and be directed to ensure that the law is complied with.